What's up, guys? And today I want to talk to you about the Division and the beta that I've played over the weekend. So, I'm pretty sure you guys are wondering, is it like Destiny? Well, I wouldn't say it's like Destiny. Not at all, actually. The only correlation that's real close to it when it comes to Destiny is that it's considered to be an MMO. You would, basically with shooting and leveling up a character in that like construct. Well, how does leveling work? Okay, so leveling works from the beta. It's kind of hard to really gauge exactly specifically how the points are like mapped out towards each thing that you do, but from what I can gather, really you level up the quickest by doing missions than versus exploring the world. Don't get me wrong, you can still level up from exploring the world, but it would just take a lot longer. So you are more so, from what it looks like in beta, is to grind missions. I mean, even if you're in the dark zone, you can still level up through the dark zone, but they both have their own leveling system. But to be honest, it's like, from what I could tell in the dark zone, you can still level up your base character outside of the dark zone level as well. I mean, don't quote me on that, but because like I said, unless you're doing missions, you don't really see a significant increase in your level. So like I said, don't quote me on that. I'm just remembering that I would see that the level would like pop up sometimes when I would kill a enemy or even a player sometimes, but usually players, well, I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So like dark zone, you level up quicker by basically killing players, but usually through bounties. I'm not sure if you go rogue yourself if you will level up from that, but from what I can tell, you level up better when you're going against actual players for the bounty. So if they've gone rogue and they've been rogue for a minute, you go after them, you know what I'm saying? You get your little DZ points and then you get your experience as well. Like each side, like the PvE and the PvP side, has its own money system. I mean, it's pretty solid like any other MMO when it comes to getting that. So like, say for instance, other MMOs it might go by a badge or a credit or something like that, but this just goes with flat out cash. But for the dark zone, it's called its own little thing. Now the weapons, what are the weapons? The weapons are, I mean, it's pretty standard to any other, I guess you could say, modern shooter, like a grounded shooter. So you have your snipe, you have your shotgun, your pistol, your semi-automatic, your fully automatic. I mean, you get a lot of your guns on there. I'm not a quote-unquote gun expert, so I can't tell you all the actual different types of guns within those realms, but I can tell you like the basic, like the core categories. And like I have seen a bazooka from time to time. I wasn't able to acquire one myself, but it was quite interesting to see. So I can't necessarily tell you how the bazooka mechanic works. I assume that to make it not be an OP weapon, it would be in place with grenades, which that's also in there. You have different type of grenades. Right now my character can only hold 3, but I believe the higher you level up, the more grenades you can carry at one time, because I know when I first started I was only able to carry 1, and then after I leveled up a little bit, not only was I able to carry 2 at that point, but I was able to get other grenades as well. But like I was saying, like as far as weapons, you pretty much, you pretty much got your standard modern weapons. I mean, it's pretty awesome to see they're utilized very well in this game. Everything does feel very natural and fluid. I mean, I understand that it takes a little bit more to kill each CPU, but I mean it's really not that bad if you're looking at two concepts here. You're looking at the fact that it's an MMO, you know what I'm saying? So in any MMO, you pretty much have to like grind out that kill. With each kill, it's not an instant situation unless you're like a high enough level and you've got that level gap. Now, granted, I mean, you can definitely customize your weapons for like a better damage output and modify them and what have you, which I mean, it helps. So, say for instance, you can increase each damage stat for like a particular body part. For right now, from what they're showing in beta, it's like for headshots. So you would see that you can, in particular, you can basically multiply your damage output towards getting headshots, which I mean that's pretty cool. But basically all I'm trying to say is like the weapon system is pretty lucrative. Now, as it stands, for weapons, you can hold a total of three pistols, always being a basic carry. So you got your primary weapon, then your secondary weapon, and then your pistol. You can choose which one's your primary and your secondary, obviously. Which also you can switch them out. Like even on the heads-up display, it'll show you like each amount that the gun is holding at that time that you can readily shoot. So it won't, like for the primary weapon, it'll show you um, the loaded ammo, and then the ammo that you have that's basically waiting to be loaded, the re-up. So you got that, and then you got your secondary that's under both of those, that's in a little smaller box, but that shows you um, basically the loaded amount of bullets in your secondary gun. So it would confuse me sometimes because I didn't really like pay attention to it before, but like sometimes I would see like it would say like one, two, and it just be blinking red, and at first I used to think it was like the grenades, and I was just like, why is my grenades blinking like that? Is it saying that I'm getting low on it? You know what's going on? Until one day I was just like, you know what? I think it's because I just finished using my secondary gun, so I switched back, and it most definitely was like countering towards that. So I basically reloaded, switched it back, and like everything was good to go. But I mean, like the weapons did make the game feel very fun to me, and I mean, it seemed very realistic and fluid as far as how the guns behave, how they feel when you shoot. So I guess the next question would be, how do you modify them? Basically, from what I can see, not only can you modify, but you can craft too. But for crafting, it wasn't in this beta. I don't know if it was in the beta before, because I haven't been able to play that one. I've only been able to play this one, and crafting wasn't in there. But for modifying, you basically just go to your start menu, you scroll down to your inventory, you highlight the gun that you want to modify. I mean, you press X, it'll show you on the user interface at the bottom on which buttons you can press, and you know what they all do, because you can also deconstruct each weapon that you find or any item that you find, pretty much to get material to craft. From what I can tell though, as far as like for crafting, your dark zone items you cannot craft because nothing comes out of them. At least that's what the warning had told me on the heads up display. Skills. Okay, so what are skills? It's kind of hard to really explain what skills are for me personally, only because I when I was dropped into the game, you know what I mean, it was a bit confusing, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of stuff had went over my head initially, but I mean, as it went on and I actually got to, because I'm more of a hands-on experience, so the more I got to actually do these things is the more I could understand them. But from what I can tell with skills so far through this beta is you have your three skill sets, which are in major classes like usual MMOs. So you got your healer, your DPS, which is damage per second, and then you've got your tank, which basically is the sponge on the team. It just takes all the damage for everybody. But they utilize it well. They utilize it in a sense where it does feel like you're in a shooting game. You know what I mean? So like, say for instance, your healer, it's just more so stem packs. I mean, it still hits the radius like any other MMO. It's not like you have to go all the way to the person and then heal them. It's more of a radius area. I don't know if the higher in level you get on that, because the beta only lets you get so far in each skill tree. So what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't know if the radius gets bigger, if the healing lasts for longer, or what the different characteristics could end up becoming while playing Division at this current time, because there's a lot of things that's promised for the full game, and I mean, only time can tell. But so like, say for instance, a modern version for the DPS, the modern version that makes it feel like a shooter. You get like basically little gadgets that just help the situation, or you get like boost, or you can scan the area. I mean, it's very, it makes it feel very much like a shooter. And then you got your tank that basically gets a shield, you know what I mean? So I mean, it all works together. It makes it really feel like it's a shooter slash MMO. Is there matchmaking? Okay, so there's matchmaking. I didn't really find this out until the end, like towards the end of the beta, only because I wasn't really looking for it at the time. I was more so just trying to play and get that more natural experience where I'm just indulged in the world, and you just happen to help other players and players help you, and you just pick each other up in the group and whatnot, and do missions or whatever. But matchmaking is definitely in there. They have it for both sides, the DZ zone, which is PvP, and the PvE side, which they even went a step further and made matchmaking for each individual area that you're gonna do. So it makes it feel, it does definitely make it feel like it's an MMO where you basically can get instanced in onto missions. But well, the first run that I did it to the point where it was just me, to see if it was even possible to do it by yourself first. From the first mission, I can say it was a little bit of a struggle. It could have been because I was, very fresh, very new, and on top of that, I was low level. But I did die a couple of times. It was very hard, but I do still feel like the game was very forgiving and understood that I was a solo player. So it was like almost every enemy that I kill, if I didn't have a med pack at that time, it would just automatically drop for me, so I would be able to heal myself again. Now, I don't really understand the mechanics of how they go about item drops as of yet, because once again, it's beta. It doesn't really talk about it, and it wasn't really enough, in my opinion, to make sense of how do drops exactly work. But like I'm saying, you can matchmake in there. You can wound up either having one extra player or like 3 more. You can do this for particular missions. You can do this for free roam. You can do this for the PvP side as well. And I mean, I feel like they really did a good job when it comes to matchmaking. They try to keep it within the level frame, but just know it becomes a little bit of a struggle to matchmake in PvE and then try to take that group to PvP, only because obviously they're not going to try to keep everybody in that same bracket. because they're understanding that you're going against CPUs, which CPUs, they're not that hard. So it's, but I mean, I'm going to talk about the CPUs, but what I'm trying to say is basically they're not accounting for other players outside of your group if you're trying to matchmake in PvE. Whereas if you're on PvP side, they are accounting for that, so they're going to make sure that you have the exact same levels, so it will be a fair situation, or I should say the levels within the range of the zone that you're in PvP side, because each PvP is catered to a particular level. So say for instance, when I had matchmake with a PvE group and we tried to go to the dark zone, some people that were higher in level, well, I take that back, like something like two, like one was higher and one was lower, and I couldn't see neither one of those, but there was one that was the exact same level as me and I could see him. Now what I also have found out is, even if you level up, like say, so for instance, the person that was one level higher than me, even though I leveled up, I couldn't see him still. I would have to have either gone out, I'm assuming, because I didn't actually try this, like by that time they had already left the group, but I'm assuming that if you go out of the dark zone and go back in, maybe it'll instance you into the same one that they're in at their level cap, or you might have to just click on theirs and then it'll have an option for instancing in. I'm not exactly sure on that, only because I didn't try it. Like by the time I leveled up and I realized I should try that out, my teammate had left the group, because I mean, he was by himself. I had seen that he was getting down quite often and nobody could help him, so I guess he was trying to look for players that were already in his instance at that point. But I mean, matchmaking is pretty good. It's pretty solid from what I could tell so far. Is it open world? It's definitely open world. I've been enjoying myself, like just exploring like each block, each alleyway. I do have to be honest though, with exploring, a lot of things do seem similar, but at the same time it was a lot of things that were just far enough apart, or I should say just different enough for me to feel like it still wasn't the same thing. But it is a lot of areas that you run into that's just like, man, this looks exactly like this other place, you know what I'm saying? Which I mean, it's understandable. I mean, I personally haven't been to New York, so I couldn't really say if it was, you know, a one-to-one scale of it, and it just really was buildings that just look exactly identical to each other. But from what I could tell though, I could tell that they were trying to go for New York. I could tell that there were some things that looked like it repeated itself, but at the same time it wasn't enough to really take me out of the submersion. It was just more of a, oh, let me just go ahead and run through these little areas so I can get to where I'm trying to get to. But it's definitely open world. What I want to talk about though is it wasn't as community based on the PvE side as I would want it to. But again, it's beta, so it's really hard to tell if there will be areas where you can see other people as far as like running around, because there is a section where you can pick up missions and buy from vendors, that's called the hub world, where you can see other players like walking around and things like that. But as far as, say for instance, once you leave a hub world, or you actually try to go out in the open world and look for missions, everybody disappears. It's just you. The most you can see is other friends that might be doing these things, but you won't see them in the actual game. You'll see them on the map. And to me, I felt like that was a little bland, only because for MMOs, it's an MMO. You know, you gotta really see the community, whether it be on the PvE side or PvP side. You want to really bring that idea of, you know, hey, this is a massive multiplayer online. You are going to see players, like, no matter what you do. Like those are the kind of MMOs that I love to see, because it's more community heavy. And I mean, to me, I personally feel like community is what carries MMOs at the end of the day, because it's really hard to get over a curve of grinding without having, a community, somebody to experience these things with. Because I mean, it's just going to become very repetitive and dry if you don't really have that community base. But you do have that particular kind of community base on the PvP side. Like the PvP side, that whole area, you will encounter naturally other players. The one thing that I did have a problem with is the fact that you can see your friends, but you never. For me, I haven't experienced it. Like I have a lot of Xbox One, like Xbox Live friends, and out of like the 20 something friends that were playing, I've never been like I could never come into a game and they would already be in the same instance as me. And I felt that kind of weird and kind of foreign, because you literally have to instance yourself into your friend's world, and the only way it seems right now that you can do this is if you join their group. And I kind of don't want to always join somebody's group. Not saying that I don't want to play with my friends, but I just kind of want to, kind of be doing my thing, and then I see one of my friends be like, oh, that's one of my friends, you know what I'm saying, and I roll with them for a little bit instead of have to specifically seek somebody out on the map. You know what I mean? That's kind of But I mean, if they, it's just for the beta and they want to actually make it to where you can like be in particular parts of the section on PvE and actually still do missions and randomly run into people, I feel like that's really gonna make the game amazing. But if they can find even a way to incorporate the dark zone into certain or a couple missions, you know what I mean, it would just really make the dynamic of the gameplay a lot more unique. But this isn't to say like it's not fun, because it is fun. Like the open world, like the game is very huge. It's very huge from what I can see, and the beauty of that to me is it's still just the beta, which a lot of sections were blocked off. So if release, they're promising to have a lot more maps. I mean, it's going to be huge. Like the game is going to be huge. Like, and the open world that was in beta alone, it felt pretty big. Like it would take me at least 5, maybe 10 minutes to walk from one side of the map to the other. How are the computers? The CPU. The CPU's difficulty isn't. They're not difficult. They're not difficult in the least. They're very, what's the word? They're very aware that it's an MMO, and they're very aware that it's not going to be a easy kill. It's not going to be a realistic, one shot or two shots and they're dead type situation. So I mean, the CPU, they definitely have differences in what they do, but it's more of, they might shoot and then sit for a while. I mean, they give you opportunities to shoot them, which I mean, that would be the only way to really go in a situation like this. So I mean, it definitely works. With their difficulty, they're not, but they're just not like difficult. They're not going to be very lucrative. The most they'll try to do is like flank you or like try to run up on you, but they're not going to do anything too outrageous. The most outrageous thing that's happened to me in the beta was when I was actually doing a side mission, or I should say an encounter. I was walking down this alleyway, and basically these two CPUs basically got the jump on me on the alleyway, like it was an ambush. And they basically killed me. Like, I mean, they legitimately killed me. But it wasn't because they were difficult. It was only because they were a higher level than me. So it took less for them to take me out. So, like I was saying before, when it comes to level gaps, it makes it feel more like a actual shooter, where it only takes a couple of shots to kill them. But I mean, in MMOs, it's the same way. So either way, I mean, the computers aren't difficult. It's just more of you trying to close or surpass that level gap. And once you do that, it just becomes a cakewalk. Like, it was some random enemies that they would be looting a dead body, and it would be one that is a grenader, and the other one is just, a regular one holding a pistol. I would shoot the grenader, but I would shoot him where his grenades are, or where the icon is saying, yo, these are grenades. You shoot it, it blows up. When I was lower level, it really wouldn't happen that way. I would have to shoot it a couple of times in order for it to activate. Whereas versus once I got past that level gap, so I would say they were one level lower than me. I would shoot the grenade once, and it'll blow up, and it'll take both of them out. I mean, it's pretty forgiving, but at the same time, it's still realistic enough to make you feel like it's still a shooter, So it was another CPU that had a flame pack. If you shoot the canister, it will blow up on them. It takes a little bit for it to blow up on them, but you'll know that it will eventually once you shoot it and you start seeing flames coming from the tank. It does do aerial damage to other enemy players as well. So if you just so coincidentally happen to do this while other CPUs are around, they will all take the hit. Sometimes they will all die together. It just depends on the level of each player, and also the CPU itself. Now there are like I guess you could call them mini bosses in some mobs that you face against, especially that I've noticed in missions, where they have a particular like ranked icon. That tells you that basically they more than likely have some kind of buff somewhere. Usually it's in defense because it takes it a little longer, and they have a little bit more health than the other ones that are around them. And then you have your main bosses for each mission. I haven't seen any main bosses yet in just open world play, but the not mini bosses, but the regular bosses in the missions, they usually come with a lot of health, and they do come with specialized items just for their scenario. One of them had a machine gun, whereas another one had like it was still a flamethrower, but it was a bigger, more damaging one. Like it still hit you even when you was in cover, unless that was just a glitch, But I would imagine that if a flamethrower that size was to come at you and you were in cover, it would still hit you though. So I couldn't really tell if they were purposely trying to go for that or not, but I mean, to me it still worked out. But like I'm saying, the CPU are not difficult in the least. It's just more so about that level difference that you should be more concerned about. I mean, you do have like different CPUs that do specialize in certain weapons. So you have like snipers, you have grenaders, you have pistolers. I mean, I've seen some. I haven't seen it in beta, but I've seen like different gameplay or different trailers that show some that have shields and what have you. Did I feel like each CPU were unique, like each different encounter? I mean, not really. I mean, they all look the same, just in different like colored outfits. So I can't really say the imagination really really sparks it, but I don't know if just in that particular area it was only those particular kind of CPUs, because again it was beta, so they don't really try to go into depth with the different kind of CPUs. I mean, there were what they call cleaners that did have the flamethrowers and other random weapons like melee weapons, but it wasn't a it was a memorable but non-memorable experience. Like, it was flamethrowers, but you don't really it doesn't really grasp your attention. You're not just like, oh, these enemies had this, but they also looked like that, and they walked and carried themselves this way. It wasn't really like that. It was just more, you really could only tell the difference because of how you had to handle them differently. So like you had the flamethrowers where you could probably instantly kill them by shooting the tanks, whereas the enemies you're just trying to either aim for the head or the bodies, you know what I mean? So it wasn't that much of a difference between each computer as of right now. Like I keep saying, in beta, because anything in beta can be changed, but for me, I more so like enjoy a game by them not only bringing you a beta, but bringing you a beta that's worth playing. And that's pretty much the last thing I want to talk about. Is this game fun? Is it worth playing? Is it something that I could find myself always coming back to? And for Destiny, Destiny. For a Division, it's a yes and a no. It's a yes and a no only because yes, I could see myself playing this game, but it's more of a game where you think about it here and there, but you don't really want to play it unless you're just having zero to do, or you have a friend that wants to play it. Basically, you only love playing it when you're actually playing it, than versus when you're not playing it. I feel it, to me personally, it's more of a task of getting back into the game to play it, than versus when I'm already in the game and I'm loving the game, So to me, it has a little bit more stuff that it should bring to the table in order to make it that game that you just can't like put down and you just keep continuously thinking about. Because let's face it, it's an MMO. It's very grind heavy, and if it's going to be grind heavy, it's really got to captivate you in such a way when it comes to gameplay and the world immersion. But you don't really get that with Division. The most that you can really find yourself really like delved into with the situation is just how the guns work and trying to acquire different guns. I felt leveling up was more of a chore to me than it was to actually enjoy the game of leveling up. And some MMOs really fail in that category, but at the same time the end game really brings it back together. And that's the one thing that we really don't have for beta, is the end game. So to me right now, I feel like it's fun, but it's still something that I would rather keep my eye on than make it a hands down thing where I'm just like, I have to get this game. But where it becomes something that makes you not really want to play it is, again, just going back to how the weapons mechanic, the crafting, all this stuff is fun, but actually utilizing it after a while just doesn't become fun anymore. Like even in the Dark Zone, it was just bare bones to me. It became a point where it was like, it was fun, yeah, seeing other players, but it wasn't really much to do. It was no different from the PvE side, where you didn't even have missions for the Dark Zone. It was just more, you just randomly come to CPUs. You try to kill them, take out the little mini boss in the mob, and then you get items, and then you try to extract them. It was very bare bones in that aspect, but you really can't take it away from when you actually get to play with other players. That's the only thing that really kept the Dark Zone alive, was just other players not knowing if they were gonna kill you, help you. You know what I mean? It was just crazy. It just felt like exactly what it was called, the Dark Zone. It was just anything could have happened when it became a player versus another player. Like, I've had people where I would go against CPUs and people would basically shoot me on my back. You know what I mean? To people who I'm going against CPUs, if I get down, they heal me and they help me out, or just random people help you out, or like sometimes it's just so crazy because you just be running down the alley, and you just happen to look back and you see somebody behind you. You just like, hold up, what's this about? So you either want them to go ahead of you, you know what I'm saying, or you just keeping your eye on them. I mean, whichever it is. I mean, it's fun, but it just doesn't have that lasting element right now. That's why I still say, though, you gotta keep an eye out for it. It's definitely going to be something that could become a very greatly utilized idea, but we have to wait until we see what the full game is, and that's just really where it boils down to, is what all does the end game really offer. Could I say from the beta standing alone, would it be a game to get? Most definitely. It's still something to try to play and experience, just to see how a shooter is implemented into an MMO. And I mean, I feel like besides Destiny did a horrible job at bringing this realization, whereas the Division did better, a whole lot better. And I don't know if it's because Division is standing on the shoulders of Destiny, you know what I'm saying, with Destiny trying to introduce such a thing to make companies feel more comfortable with doing it, or if they just always had this idea and weren't able to figure a way to realize it until today. I mean, either way, it's still if you're thinking of an MMO shooter, this would be about the best experience that you can find as of right now. It encompasses a lot of ideas that make the game good, but at the same time it's still lacking with this idea. But I feel like the full game is something most definitely we should all look forward to and see what it's going to be like, And with that, guys, I just want to end this. I mean, if you like this, you know what I'm saying, please like this video. I mean, I'm not trying to beg, but at the end of the day, I just want to know that you guys are like tuning in, you listening, you know what I'm saying, that you guys are seeing that, this is something that I should be doing. I just want to make sure I'm bringing you guys something that can help you along. I am going to upload some Naruto Ninja Storm 4 gameplay. I suck at that, but I mean, I'm going to try, and I'm going to try to show you guys this game. I mean, it's definitely awesome and fun to play as well. But other than that, like I'm saying, you guys, I will see you on the next one, and hook it out.